Hello, everyone, and welcome to Look Behind You, the podcast where we talk about the paranormal, the supernatural, and everything in between. I am, I was about to say my username. I am Jacob.
Who is Sir Boom?
Who is Sir Boom?
We're playing Jeopardy?
What?
Who is,
Copyright.
like, whenever you answer, you have to answer the question in a form, you have to answer the question in the form of a question. Who is Sir Boom?
That's
Would be
not
the answer.
Jeopardy.
Yes, it is.
That's Jeopardy. I thought that. What's the other one?
Bingo?
Not Bing. Anyways, that's Jordan,
Hi.
and the other guy is Terry.
You.
But
And
what's
then
the
we have
third
a
one?
very special guest, Paul.
Hi.
Hi. Hello, Paul.
We're all very famous, so you should just know us by our first names.
Everyone knows Paul.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
Paul.
Right, you've been in that movie and the other movie and on all those podcasts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm not serious.
No, I was going
I've
to
been
ask
on-
if it was John Paul Jones.
I've been
the
on
pirate.
one podcast.
You
and
did?
This one like 2 months.
How do we know if he's
Yeah,
there?
so what was I saying? Oh yeah. So Paul was originally supposed to be on a podcast episode, and Terry had a emergency, so we ended up doing
His
a
car went
sidetrack
boom.
episode and talking about a movie.
Alien.
So we kind of brought him back on to actually do a proper episode for once because he has a topic he is very passionate about.
And
Yes.
is this where we hand the episode off and I'll go home while he records?
I'm going to take a nap. So see you guys.
You're on your own, Paul. Good night.
But no, today's episode is about, well, the one thing we can't hide from, we can't run from, and it comes for all of us.
I've been hiding from him since 2004.
You say that very matter of factly, like that's like your everyday thing. And that makes me worry.
1809.
18.
18. Oh, dang. Are you John Paul Joe?
Anyways, that thing is death. Or what people say the instrument of death is the Grim Reaper. Or
Pablo.
What? What?
I had to say it.
Alright, everyone, just so you know, and you probably heard it before, this is 2 a.m. talk.
This is
Well-
Jordan at 12 o'clock in the morning.
I'm excited for no good reason.
That's called anxiety.
I'm not anxious. I'm just rambunctious.
Oh, shit. Anyways, yeah, what's some of the mini names of the Grim Reaper?
Pablo.
Not Pablo. Shut up, Jordan.
Fine.
Well, in Breton. No,
Breton.
Breton.
You mean
origins.
No,
It's Breton. It's pronounced Breton.
Or also Brittany, which
Brit-
is France.
Brittany?
Brittany.
Brittany?
What?
Like the land of Brittany. It's a town.
I've,
or,
I've never heard
It's
of
an
it.
area located in a
But
peninsula of France.
their name for death is the Anku.
The Anku?
Yeah.
The ankle?
Is it Achilles?
Anku.
Anku.
A-N-K-O-U.
Okay. Anku. Okay.
And then Irish is the Dullahan.
The Dallahan. Yep. Also, I think it's Scottish belief is Banshee.
Yep. There's
Yeah.
the Banshee.
Indian name for the person.
Actually, the Banshee is Gaelic. Scottish is the Coos.
Gaelic
Who's it?
is derivative of like Ireland and other regions that
Yeah.
are on there.
India, it is a god of death called Yama. In Greek
No.
mythology, it's Thanatos.
Norris
Oh, no.
is
So-
Hell.
Yeah. Saying all that kind of brings us to the fact of
We're talking about
humans.
The Grim Reaper.
Yeah, humans have been fascinated with death since, well, probably the first person died. They're probably really confused, actually.
That we can do that?
Timothy, wake up! He ain't
Timothy?
getting back up. What do we do now?
Eating.
Oh, boy.
Whoa, why does it always come down to cannibalism?
1809.
What happened in 1809?
We ate Timothy.
Oh, wait,
Wow.
when? I'm confused.
I'm not even going to question it. Anyways,
You shouldn't.
so yeah, many cultures have found their own ways to personify death, either through what most American culture and English culture know as the Grim Reaper, which is the skeletal figure with a cloak and scythe that walks you into the afterlife, or the Indian god Yama, which you die, you end up in his palace, and he judges you if you either get to stay in his palace or his kingdom, go to basically their form of
one of their many hells, or
many hells.
get to try it all over.
Yep,
again.
get reincarnated. There's also the belief from the Greek gods, which the
Wayfarer.
the Wayfarer, the person that drove the boat to Haiti, as well as there's just the plain Greek god from Greece, which is Thanatos, which he was known for, not Thanos.
Thanatos.
Which is known for one of the first personifications of death. He was known to be a very good-looking person with wings and also extinguished torch, and he would guide people to the underworld.
Kind of the irony of that too is his brother is the god of sleep.
Yep. Well, there's actually in a lot of these cultures, there's like a really weird distinction, because a lot of the death gods were also related to something that if it didn't happen, a lot of people would end up dying.
Yeah.
So it'd be like in Mesopotamia?
Mesopotamian?
No, not Mesopotamian. It's the it's from the Bible. What's the race? What's that? Egyptian? Not Egyptian. Canaanite. In the Canaanite regions, a lot of people thought Mot, the god of death, brought drought and infertility, as well as everybody thought he was related to the god Baal, which Baal was the god of rain.
Yep.
And a lot of people thought that Mot kept Baal from making it rain, which is a cool dichotomy where rain was a big thing in the Middle East because, of course, there's not a lot of water. So if it didn't rain, a lot of people died. So they thought Mot was causing Baal to not have it rain.
Right.
Interesting.
So it's just interesting things like that. So lots of different cultures, lots of different interpretations of death and the person that brought you to the afterlife. Many of them are more aggressive than the others. A lot of the more well-known ones, like the Grim Reaper, what's the one from Mexico or Spanish? What's her name?
Covera, Catarina.
Right. Those were more peaceful, where they guide you or walk with you to the afterlife.
Well, in a lot of cultures too, death is. The United States has got a weird kind of mixed personification, but there's a lot of cultures that's like, rather than mourn a death, they celebrate the life.
Yep.
So it's like a lot of depictions are not grim or morbid; they're more kind of whimsical.
Right.
Yeah. And with the American version of the Grim Reaper, a lot of people think that he kills the people and takes them.
Yeah.
No, he just visits them after they die and transports them to.
The Grim Reaper is like the most chill version of like death.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, cause like even one of the first stories I know of, he was just a guy that drove a cart through London during the Black Plague, and like just drove a cart and loaded dead people on it, just like
because
carried them.
He's like the ultimate mortician.
Yeah, because the first mentions of the Grim Reaper was from the Black Plague, and he was just described as a skeleton on a cart.
Yep.
That just piles dead bodies on the cart and drives them down the road. Just gets rid of them.
Some of the things that like pre that though weren't so chill, because a lot of depictions of like skeletons or horned skeletons carrying weapons and stuff was like the original thing, because they just
crossbow and darts. Yeah. Well, that was also before the Black Plague.
Well,
the main way of death was war.
Phases.
Yes. Well, also before the Black Plague, where the Grim Reaper came from, it was war.
Yeah.
That killed the most people.
Yep.
Where that's where also the Valkyries from Viking culture come from. Nordic culture, where they'd have to die on the battlefield, and then this beautiful
Velcro.
Valkyrie would scoop them up from the battlefield and ride them to Valhalla.
Yeah.
Like that's a version of the Grim Reaper as of death.
Yep.
But that was like one of the most violent because Valkyries were known as mighty warriors.
Yep.
Yeah, and the reason they personified the Grim Reaper is because they had to be so used to everybody around them dying. They had to put a face to it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Coping.
Also, for some reason, in an artistic culture at that time, walking and dancing skeletons was a really big thing to paint for one reason or another.
Well, yeah, it was the dance macabre.
Yeah.
The dance of death, as they called it a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
I don't know why they depicted it like that. I think it was because to them at that time it was basically if there was something to put a face to it, then it was celebrating what it was doing because
Right.
it was. You had probably about a 75% chance that you were going to be dying from the Black Plague.
Also, like death happened at a much earlier age. I think it was you were like dying at the age 40, 50.
30s.
I honestly don't know because
It was like
people
30s to
say that
50s.
and like some historical records show that, but yet then there's also people still historically that are like, yeah, they were 90.
Yeah, but you have to think about
average
those
age.
The average
were the,
lifespan.
Yeah, those were the really rich people as well. The people that could actually take care of themselves.
The rich actually died a lot because of dietary things that
Mhm.
they did to themselves.
It was
Well,
the
yeah, they
average.
also liked being fat back then too.
Yeah, and indulgence usually was, or assassinations, things like that. Were very
It's
much
the average lifespan of the populace in different times because the lifespan would go up and then it would also plummet in certain times. Like during the Dark Ages, it'd be lower just because of the way of life
Yeah,
was a lot harsher. Like for Pete's sake,
it's also regional too.
regional. And then at other times, it was a lot higher. Say like during a more peaceful time where they had a little bit more figured out and people could just live. It could be up in like the 90s, like it is now. The only reason it's stable in like the 80s to 90s in our time is because of the modern medicine and just the focus on health.
Yeah. Let's see. Paul, what else you got for us?
He is the info man today.
Well, yeah. One of the more well-known origins of the Grim Reaper is in Germanic culture or religion. In Revelations, one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse is a skeletal figure with a robe on a pale horse. So which is only the one of the only horseman that was given the name of death.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that's another origin, but that's a lot farther back than the
A lot farther.
Plague.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's true. I also do wonder though, how strict that is to the original verse of the Bible, or if that was maybe changed by the church, that more of the Catholic writings.
It's kind of debatable because there's
Or just
two different
translations.
depictions of death biblically. There's the angel of death, which is supposed to actually be the embodiment of it.
Actual death.
And I have heard before where
Well,
death, like on the horse, is also the personification of like Satan. Because
Yeah, but I think the angel of death was supposed to be Azrael.
yeah. Also, the angel of death was set for specific tasks too.
Yeah.
It was not
Right.
an entity meant for day-to-day use.
Like
Yeah.
terrorizing Egypt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For
that's a
night.
special thing.
You're right, and that was the only time the angel of death was used for things. Where I think the horseman for death, like I said, it depends on what version of stuff is. Sometimes it's death, like you were describing. Other times I've heard it, be Satan or whatever.
It's
Right.
probably up to translation because Hebrew can be translated. A lot of their words,
Or symbolic.
They also
Are-
have multiple meanings as well.
they can mean like 3 different things in English.
Yeah.
With all different connotations with them.
Yeah, but one word in English could also have 3 different degrees. Like some could be more minor and some could be more major.
Right,
Yep.
exactly. So it's odd that like it's cool and odd to think about, like, the only horsemen in the Bible, because the Bible is supposed to be one of the earliest written bits of history, besides for, like, the Mesopotamian writings and stuff. It's cool that, like, they were similar to what it came from in the future variations of death.
Yep.
Right, but the part of the Bible that the four horsemen come from is supposed to be a vision of the future.
Yes.
Not
Correct.
in that time.
Right.
Yeah.
So
it's also interesting to think about it in that aspect too. Like the death, the personification of death changes with the view, the culture, and the views of the people around. Like
right.
it might be more of a happy passing, depending on what culture you're in, or it might be more of a cruel and more
Right.
bloody
Mhm.
one.
I mean,
depending.
back when the Black Plague was happening, it was a very Catholic-driven area of the world, so that
Yep.
could
Yeah.
possibly be why they gave him the name Death.
Right.
Or
If I remember, I mean, like back during the Black Plague, I think the church was literally locking people in their houses.
It would probably, I think, depended on area to area because every place had.
I'm
different
talking
handles, so-
specifically like in
Britain
the cities,
itself.
Yeah,
because the church had a lot of power back then because it worked very closely with the royalty.
yeah.
So like back then, like the church was the hospital. The church was also the schools, kind of.
yeah.
Church had its fingers in everything.
So it's like interesting to look at that implications as well.
Yeah.
So that's mainly the English or like the British or
European and
European. That's what I was looking for. Variation.
northern.
But there's also,
not northern, western.
like you're talking about, Anku, right?
I think the proper pronunciation is Anku.
Anko.
Anku. I don't know.
How does it? An
Where is
Ah,
this from?
Anku. That's
Breton.
how-
Breton,
Yeah.
Breton?
So, London or England.
England.
It's pronounced Anku.
Anku. So yeah, why don't we dive into that really quick? 'Cause that seems to be very close to the Grim Reaper, but also has a fairly big difference compared to the Grim Reaper himself. So
Yeah, the biggest difference is that the Anku, depending on which Breton parish you are in, each parish typically has their own, and the Anku is reset, or the last person to die of whatever in each parish.
right. Yep.
So it could be whatever. So it could be male or female.
Okay, so is it like each parish actually had like
Their
its
own.
own unique Anku?
Yeah,
split?
it's a
Okay.
different. It's a totally different person that
And they
just takes the role for the next year.
Okay.
the
And-
last person that died that year would become the Anku for the next year.
Oh, this is interesting. I was reading the wiki article on this, and I guess some people say he drives a large cart collecting the dead, kind of like how the Grim Reaper did during the Black Plague, as well. Or he was seen walking, or sorry, he's riding a cart accompanied by two ghostly figures on foot.
Yes, that would help him load the bodies
Right.
and take. And with that story is that he has stones in the back of his cart, and then he replaces those stones with bodies.
Oh.
So they would toss a stone out and replace it with a body.
Like a gravestone.
Huh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I never really thought about it that way, but probably.
Well, it also says here that, like you said, that in one version he was the Anku was the the newest person to have died from different parishes.
Yeah, the last person of each
The last
parish.
person died. It also says here that he might have. Well, some people say he was the first child of Adam and Eve,
Yeah, that's
which would have been who died? Was it Cain?
No, Abel.
Abel. Other versions depict Anku as the first dead person of the year, which is close to the parishes that you're talking about.
right.
Close to the last, but it's the first.
That sucks to know, like, that sucked to die, like, right on New Year's. It's like, oh, frick, now I'm stuck with this job.
Yeah, And there's different
I
versions.
almost got out of court duty.
Yeah. And there's different versions. Like there's also a plague story about death.
Yeah.
Like one of the main stories that I remember is that there was a rich prince out on a hunt, and then he went out to go there. Him and his buddies were drinking, and he went out to use the restroom, and he met death because somehow he died out there.
Yeah.
And he's like,
He choked on a chicken wing.
yeah. And
I
then,
remember that story.
and he challenged death to find either the white or the black stag.
The white stag.
But he knew that was impossible because he didn't think it existed.
Yeah.
So when he told Death go, he went out. Death went to go look for it, and he ran the other way to his castle to lock himself inside. But a week or so later, Death came back to his palace, dragging the stag with him, and the prince had a whole bunch of nobles locked in his palace, so the peasants couldn't get in. And
They're basically having a big Black Death, like,
a masquerade party.
Yeah.
And then, basically, Death obviously gets in via some other person because one of the nobles got sick and not knowingly and brought it inside, and everybody in the palace died.
Yeah.
Sounds a lot.
And
like,
then that prince became the new Anku, and then his depiction is a little different than most because he had a big brimmed hat and wore a cloak, but didn't put the hood on. So he just had a hat until his face and skeletal structure disappeared so much. Then he put the hood on.
That also has a somewhat more, how do I say this? Not loving, like a more
Poetic.
wholesome side to the story, because there's also a girl that was taking care of her brother, and she ended up dying.
Yep.
And
then she
Death
became one of the ghostly figures.
Yeah,
that followed.
Death allowed her to walk next to the car. She was actually the first ghostly figure that walks side by. And so she, through the years of her being dead, would actually see many different deaths. She'd kind of be the one that introduced the job to the deaths.
Yeah, and then when she would go up to the houses looking, she'd be a little bit nicer and be like, welcome to our, like...
Yeah, she was like the welcoming party, and then the Grim Reaper's like, get in the back.
Right.
Get in the back.
The story with the noble there sounds a lot like an old Edgar Allan Poe story too, or
he could possibly
story.
have one. I haven't seen it before.
It's called the Scarlet Mask. But in that story, it's like a noble. I believe it was like the devil is like trying to collect the soul of a noble, but it's the same thing of like it's during the time of the Scarlet Fever, and he brings it in with him, and just like slowly people start dying from it and stuff.
Well, that's also a big it's a big story plot, and also a big kind of plot device, because you even look at zombie apocalypse stories.
Yeah.
90% of the time, you have a party of people. There's one person that was bit but's hiding it because he doesn't want to be exiled from the group. They find a very well kept up community of people that are keeping themselves safe. The guy that was bit brings in the zombie virus, and it ends up falling apart from the inside. So it's interesting to look at stories like that, because it kind of shows people like to deny death up until the moment it happens to them.
Mm-hmm.
So even somebody could be literally dying of a zombie virus or scarlet fever, the Black Plague. They're still going to deny it because, well, they're alive at the moment.
They don't want to die.
Humans have a very good affinity to just ignoring it until it happens to them directly.
Yep. Which
is interesting to also look at the death personification, because there's never really a version of death that just goes out and kills somebody. He's just
other than in
just
pop culture.
There right after it happens.
Yeah, but there are some stories where the Anku has killed people.
Yes,
there's a story where the Anku and his two ghouls were walking down and his wagon breaks, and then a guy in a field hears him coming because the Anku has a wagon that has a squeaky axle.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
And then the guy comes out and wants to see him, but he doesn't want the Anku to see him so he doesn't die.
Yeah.
So he hides in the bush. But then when the cart breaks, Death sends out his ghouls to go get the tree that the guy was hiding under.
Yeah.
But he still gets away. But like the next couple days, he is found dead in his house because the Anku knew he was there, but didn't show that he knew.
Right. Which is also a kind of going to my point, though. It's like you can see death, you can see it coming, and you can still run away from it, but
it will find you.
It will find you. Like, death comes for us all. Like, it's that quote from every mad, evil supervillain in basically every movie that they always almost quote, death comes for us all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's also a saying in the Breton origin is that the Anku will never leave empty-handed.
Right. Yep. Death always finds somebody.
Right.
One way or another. Alright, so I think that's a good first half of the episode, so we're gonna go to our sponsor break and we'll be right back with a pretty cool story about the Grim Reaper himself.
Yep.
So yeah.
Sounds good.
Alright, we'll be right back. Bye. And we're back. So we are talked about the Grim Reaper and all the variations of that. And now we're going to go into the end of our episode. We're going to go into a fun little story. Not fun. An interesting story about the Grim Reaper himself. So, Paul, take it away.
Okay. Another example of the guy is the Godfather death story. In the most famous example of the story, the Grim Reaper becomes a godparent of an infant due to death being reliable and just unlike the other two opinions of devil and God, both of whom were too chaotic and cruel. The infant grows up and becomes a physician, and death gives him an enchanted glass of water which allows them to see whether the Reaper is at the head of a dying
man's
the head of the dying's bed or at the feet of it. If death is resting at the feet of, then he can sprinkle water from the glass to cure the patient in question. But if death is at the head of the bed, then he cannot do anything. The physician uses the cup and becomes a very successful physician, but one day breaks his bargain with death and sprinkles water on the bed of the king's dying daughter. When death is about to claim her at the bed's head, angry at the physician, death takes him to their lair, which is filled with candles, which represents the length of human life. When the physician sees his own, he notices that it is nearly melted entirely away. The physician proceeds to ask his godfather to move the fire from his candle to another longer one, but instead, seeing an opportunity to teach the boy a lesson, death drops the candle, causing it to burn out, and the physician dies.
Well, that was quite a lesson.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, I'm going to teach you a lesson. Boom, you're dead.
The
That's
ultimate
interesting.
lesson.
So, in that version of death was actually given another job to actually bring up life instead of just
he gave him.
end it.
Yeah, he gave people a chance to live.
Yeah, interesting.
Which is, I mean, pretty accurate to life when, like, situations rise where, oh, you're sick. You could make it, you could not make it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, given circumstances. So, well, that's really cool. Any more stories for us?
That's the only
you
one.
had a small compendium there of stuff.
That's all that notebook.
So, you as the guest, is there anything else you want to talk about before we go into the ending stages of the episode where we talk about our thoughts and stuff?
Before I start screaming.
No,
Yeah.
I think we went over all the major things about
Okay.
the Reaper and all of his.
Yeah, so in this episode, we kind of started it off saying that we're going to talk about a lot of different variations of death, but I think what ended up happening is we mainly focused on the Grim Reaper and slight variations of the Grim Reaper.
Yeah.
We'll come back with later episodes as well, going into deeper topics about maybe more well-known variations of death as well.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll have you on again to talk about them. So
I would like that.
I do have to ask with this. What is like? Because I know, well, obviously you're interested in it. What is like this particular?
What
I
got
guess,
you interested
depiction?
into it?
Yeah. What was it that made you interested in it?
if you say you're goth, I'm gonna kick you out right now.
I wouldn't
Well,
say
there goes
goth.
our goth audience. So it's like 5 listeners.
Oh, dang.
Dang! Please come back.
We're
I'm
sorry.
I wouldn't say I'm goth. Probably far from it. But I don't know. I just like the depiction of it. I mean, I've gotten very much into like skulls and how they look and stuff. I don't really have any other reason other than I just like the stories and the way he looks.
Okay.
Reminds me of that meme. I just think they're neat.
Just think they're neat.
Person.
That's
ready
also
to
one of the-
response.
That's also one of the reasons that the only Christmas movie I like is the Christmas Carol,
Oh, because
the cartoon and the.
I've always
Ghost of
really liked that
Future.
one as well. Like it's
Yeah, the Ghost of the Future Christmases. That scene I
Mhm.
like a lot just because of what
Ghost
it
of,
is.
is it Ghost of Futures Past? No.
Futures yet to come.
Futures Yet to Come.
And that's the one that looks like the Grim Reaper.
Right.
Mhm.
At least in
Because
the Kermit, the puppets. one.
No, it's
No,
always
it's-
been depicted that all the way from like old George C. Scott stuff all the way back to the book.
Because it also shows his death.
Yes. Well, it shows him a happy ending where he kind of opens up his heart to the Christmas spirit, and then it also shows where he stayed closed off and ended up dying all alone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, wait, no, it showed his death twice, didn't it? It showed it where he was more kind to people and people came up and talked good about him.
If I remember right, they
It
did.
just shows his grave.
It shows
Future.
his current future,
Ah, that's right.
and how
On the
like
path
no
he
one cares. They're actually kind of happy
Because
because they
he's
got the
screwed.
inheritance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also the depiction of that too is also to show that the future is always shrouded and uncertain.
And can be changed.
Yeah, nothing's set in stone.
Right.
Well, about the only thing that is set in stone is your death.
Yeah, you're going to
Right.
die.
But it's
But the way that people react to your death varies greatly
Exactly,
on how
that's-
you react or interact with people while you're alive.
The only
yeah.
thing you can control about it is what's going to come after your death, your legacy.
Your legacy.
Are people going to spit on your grave, or are people going to mourn at your grave?
It's also been like I've heard this saying a couple times, like you die twice.
Yep.
When you actually die, and then when the last person says your name, you can kind of control the second part
You
by
know,
what you've done.
You said that like a couple weeks ago, and that actually
Yep.
like blew my mind. I never thought of that before.
Yep.
Like, I don't know. I never really thought of death much. Mainly because it's like a depressing topic, but it's like you just don't like as humans we're kind of like, at least nowadays we're like engineered and like conditioned to just not think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Death is depressing, really, depending on how you see it.
Yeah.
I mean, you
Well,
can see it in
nowadays
a-
in like this society, because like this society, like there's not really much focus on like an afterlife.
No.
right.
yeah, but in this society is more based on what you have in the moment and what's
Yeah,
Very
exactly.
realism.
Yeah.
Like what you can see in
yeah,
stuff.
and it's also your physical wealth, like people,
physical.
lots of money. I mean, you
What you
can't-
can feel or
Where-
actually see.
Like, I would love to do a topic on this, and I unfortunately don't have the name in front of me of the people, but it's like then there's people like in Indonesia where it's like they literally every, I think, 10 years exhume their dead, introduce their family that's never met them to like the corpse and stuff, clean them up as best they can, have a day with them, and then they put them back.
That's a little creepy.
But they look at it differently because to them they believe that it's like the soul has a little bit of time to come back, visit family, and then go back.
Oh,
Yeah, that's sort
kind
of
of like Cinco de Mayo. Is it?
yeah, the Day of the
Awesome.
Dead.
Yeah,
Day of the
where
Dead.
you go to like your family's grave and you
And you have the shrines and the pictures and the candles.
and you share that person's story so that like
It's like that in a lot of
who's
cultures.
never met your great grandfather
Right.
can know him on kind of on a personal level.
Yeah, and a pretty okay movie that depicts this is Coco?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I didn't
I
get to
love that
see
movie.
all of it, but I hear it was a great movie, and just like
Yeah,
hearing like
It's a really good depiction of Cinco de Mayo and how that all works.
Yeah.
Cool.
And
I'm
what
gonna have
it-
to watch it.
And it also depicts the version of the side of it where if you get disowned by your family, that one of them gets to make it back into their family and be
Right. Because
a part of it again.
a mistake was corrected.
Right.
Yep. And it is very much, it's like here, and I'd say probably Europe, it's like death is very negatively depicted,
yeah,
where places that are, I guess, unfortunate enough to be like the epicenters for a lot of it, it's kind of viewed differently
Yeah.
because it's a regular part of life.
Yep.
yeah. It's a very interesting topic.
Well, and it's like there's another culture. It's like they accumulate wealth like very frantically. This is a village. I don't remember where, but they accumulate as much wealth as they can, not to have in the moment, but so that they can have the most grandiose funeral when they go.
Oh yeah, you were
Like,
telling me about that.
To the point where the family will keep bodies for like up to, I think it was upwards to like 10 years, so that they can save up enough money to have a funeral for that person, and
Yeah.
they just, the whole village just goes full out for
Yeah,
it
that's
because
cool.
it's like to them that is the most important point of life.
Yeah, but on the other end is that in the States it was illegal to keep bodies for more than a couple days in your house.
Yeah. Yep.
Like you had to bury it right then, right now, right then.
Yep. No matter what.
Right.
Well, unless you kept them stored in a vat of acid,
Right.
like some serial killers.
Or in a freezer.
Yeah, but I was more talking about family keeping other family members.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
I
in
know.
a
I was
house.
just making a off-color joke.
Right. It couldn't be like, yeah, my relative really wanted a big funeral and stuff, and everybody to come. It's like, oh, I'm on a time limit on this.
Yeah, you got like 2 days to
Yeah.
figure this out.
Even though I've got the equipment and stuff, and I keep them clean and everything, I still have to get them in the ground.
Right.
Yep.
Or get them.
Honestly, here in the States, we don't value the dead. We don't value death in any way.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, we talked about this in our Halloween episode as well. Like,
Yeah.
we commercialized like
lot.
our holiday of the afterlife
yeah.
Yeah.
to the point where it's now just about like
Candy.
candy and dressing up and stuff.
Yeah.
But like even still, like if you notice, like the Grim Reaper, like you're saying in like Hollywood and stuff, is known now as the person that actually kills people.
It's
And in
depicted as,
Halloween
like, death.
in Halloween decorations, he's the guy with the big scythe that's about to chop somebody.
He's
Yeah.
depicted as like destined death. He brings death.
Yeah.
Also, too, with our culture, and again, not saying for everybody. I mean, you see it on the billboards and stuff. We look at it as, oh, it's another thing we got to pay for.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, oh, let's remember who passed away. It's, oh boy, and I got funeral costs now.
Right.
Right.
And that's just kind of a sad thing of here.
Yeah, it is.
And it should be, it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to gather up as much history about this person as I possibly can and, try to track down everyone in their life so that they meant something.
Right.
Yeah.
So, the story in the myth and legend of the Grim Reaper and of Death himself is a very hard one to say for certain, because if it's real, because there's no certain evidence. Anybody that's ever seen him has died or is dead, right? So it's like kind of hard to say, but what are you guys' thoughts on like the legends and the myth of the Grim Reaper? We'll start with Jordan.
I say it is 100% real.
You think there's an actual personification of death?
Yes, in multiple forms. Say you want to like leave out like the supernatural or anything in it. They've actually done tests on like a person that's dying, and the certain part in their brain that is like developed dreams and stuff just goes crazy.
Okay, so like, are you saying it's more like what people want to see when they die?
Could be like what they want to see or something like that, or you could go into like the supernatural or the spiritual, and it's a literal Grim Reaper.
That
Yeah.
makes sense for some of the legends. For like the Valkyrie, like there's the legend of the Vikings. Like when they died on the battlefield, a Valkyrie came down and picked them up. Like of course they'd see that if they're dying. Like for
Yeah.
Yeah, but that could also be them just reliving everything all at once.
It could be reliving everything at once. I just believe, without a shadow of a doubt, that it is real in almost any form.
Okay, interesting. How about you, Terry?
I'm not gonna say it isn't real. I'm not gonna say it is real for that. I more went into this just enjoying some old legends and stories.
Yep.
Good old fashioned culture.
Yep. I mean, I can say for a fact it's like not to be morbid, but kind of to lean towards Jordan's thing. We took care of my grandma for years, and she, like, if I remember right, she actually did die in our house. But one of the things that my dad remembers of it is she was talking to somebody before she passed away, or and turns out it was somebody she knew like way back from when she was a kid.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it's like it's like you said,
There's so much related with death itself that I personally believe that you can't not say there's something with it.
right, and it's like with a lot of this stuff. There's depictions. There's no culture that does not have a depiction of death.
Right.
It'd be honestly a little weird not to have some form of depiction of it.
Right. Yep.
Because it is part of who we are.
That's a good way of putting it. How about you, Paul?
I'll go with what Terry said. There's not 100% proof, but there's not 100% disproof of
Right.
it. Like, there are stories of people who say they've seen him and still lived, obviously, because
Yeah.
there's stories of it. But whether just seeing stuff because they think it's there, or seeing something that's actually there, or just a shadow, it's to the eye of the beholder.
Right. Makes sense. I personally think, I want to say, like, as somebody that actually believes in, like, an afterlife and stuff, that there's probably some form of, like,
Apparition.
yeah. Like, I mean, I'm a Christian, right? So I even believe that when we die, that we go up to heaven. Like, there's actually, like, a person, like, they say it's, in the Bible, they say it's, Peter?
St. Peter.
St.
Yeah.
Peter, that greets you at the gate, type of thing. So like that's even a variation of somebody bringing you to the afterlife. But I think there's something that guides you, something that even helps you along. Now, even explain a little bit of why ghosts exist, if they do exist, because it's like maybe the Grim Reaper didn't get to him in time.
Yeah, and another story for ghosts is that in one of the mythologies or religious, there's a boatmaster that you have to pay a coin to get across. And
Ferryman. That's in
Greek.
Yeah.
Charon.
And if you can't pay, he refuses you passage, and you have to wander around
Yes.
Earth for the rest of all eternity.
Yep.
Yeah. There's also, I want to say there's like one other version where it's more like a bribe to make sure that they get safe passage to the underworld. It's not
Isn't that
won't
also like
send
in
him.
that's also like in Egyptian culture, why they buried the wealth with them?
Yep.
So that way they had money to
Yeah.
Well,
get across the afterlife.
kind of. The way
It's a little different.
The way Egyptian afterlife was they believed that like the nobles and stuff, because they believed that their royalty was descended from the gods, was that they would live eternity, and they wanted to make it as comfortable for them as possible.
Okay.
But the normal death was you were set before, I think it was Anubis and Set, and they would judge your life.
Yeah.
Decide what would happen.
And with the coin, the way that they would make sure that they had money to give the ferryman is that they would place a coin on their tongue.
Yep.
In
Tongue.
their mouth. And
I've also heard like 2 coins on the eyes.
Yep.
Yeah.
That, I believe, the 2 coins in the eyes, I believe, is a old like Roman Catholic practice.
Yep.
Because it was to pay penance into heaven for like unsettled sins.
Yep. Also, we learned this from watching The Northman the other week. At least some of us did. You haven't seen The Northman yet. but
I probably never will.
it's good. You should watch it.
I'm probably gonna wait until it comes out on like a streaming service or.
Oh, that's right. You didn't watch it either.
DVDs.
Okay. Well, Paul, you watched it with me.
I did.
In Nordic culture, if somebody died and they weren't on the battlefield at the moment, the horse that they rode, they would behead the horse and lay it with them in their grave. The horse was supposed to be able to carry them through the afterlife.
Okay. That's kind of like, again, I don't know. That's kind of like that village I was telling you about that has a big celebration.
Yep.
They would get one of their big things with that cost that they save up for. So they buy the finest, like these special bred cattle.
Yeah.
Because in their culture, they believe that these cattle and these roosters and stuff that they kill will make basically a death procession, like a parade, basically
okay.
guiding you through the darkness of the afterlife to the other side.
Oh, that's interesting. That's
Like
cool.
they believe that, and there's like the cow and the chicken are symbols that actually are supposed to ward off what exists in the darkness.
Right. Oh, that's cool. All right, so we're almost done, but real quick, I want to ask you guys. We'll start with Paul. What's your favorite variation of death?
The Anku.
Anku. Okay. How about you, Terry?
Yama,
Yama.
because
We didn't go over him much, but
we
he's
didn't
pretty
go
cool.
over him much, but in
You want to
I don't
a
want.
quick?
Yeah, blue dude, giant palace gets to decide whether you stay, go, or get a redo.
Yeah, he's mainly from Buddhism and Indian culture.
Yeah.
How about you, Jordan?
I don't know if it counts, but the ferryman.
You like the ferryman from Greek culture?
Yeah.
He does count because when you die, you end up at the
Right.
dock.
The
The,
dock.
the Reaper is just a guide anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like that-
psychopomp.
Yes.
That's what it is. Yeah.
I like that as a story. Probably the best.
That's kind of interesting too, because in that one, in Greek culture especially, hell is just like another place.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like another version of Earth, and you just kind of
Well,
were there.
the way Hades was supposed to be was depending on your actions, depending on how you lived in life. There were levels of Hades that were paradise.
Yep.
There were levels that were neutral and you just existed, and then there were like levels
Actual like
that,
hell.
Yeah, that were like the worst of the worst. Went
Yeah.
down to like a labyrinth where
I
you're
believe
just
that's
pelted
also-
all the time.
I believe that's also a little bit where Dante,
Dante's Inferno. Seven levels.
yeah, took a lot of his ideas with his Divine Comedy series.
Yep, the Divine Comedy was like a blend of
There was three
early
books.
church and
It's kind of
Greek
also
mythology.
him, like, it's actually not a religious thing at all. It's
No,
an
no.
actual comedy.
It's like one
As
of the
they
first
depict.
parodies.
Yes.
It's taking
Yeah.
religious texts and also Greek culture.
Mm-hmm.
See his interest in both.
There
of
was
them
also a
and
lot of
mixing them.
politics in it.
yeah,
Yeah.
because comedy as we know it now is different from back then. Comedy was a play; it was
Yeah.
Yeah.
something put on for people.
My favorite, I'm gonna cheat a little bit and say I'm Anku because I like the variations of it, like a person taking the role,
Mhm.
like constantly changing and stuff. But also, I like the Valkyries. I think those are
It's also a
interesting.
good one.
There's a lot more to those as well because Nordic and Viking culture was very, very war driven. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very combat driven.
like they had a very like what we watch it in the Northmen. If you didn't die in combat, they had a very elaborate funeral to try to make sure you ended up in Valhalla.
Yeah,
Because it was very based on glory.
Yep.
And they thought the way you get glory is through battle.
Yeah, so in a way, when they died, like you said, in that one village, they had a big parade. Nordic culture also kind of did that as well,
yeah.
but it's a little bit more messed up than just celebrating. It's more like, oh crap, we need to make sure Jimmy makes it there.
Load them up in the catapult and fire away.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah, but with Nordic, they don't really bury their dead. They put them on a ship with the Virgin and burn them up.
Yeah, well, kind of hard to shovel through ice and rock,
Yeah.
which is a lot of what they lived on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They were also a very seafaring culture
They're also nomadic,
and nomadic.
so yeah. But yeah, I think that about sums up the episode. Yeah, I'd like to thank Paul for joining us and giving us some good insights. So that was fun.
Yeah. I
Making us
enjoyed
do
it.
this topic.
What?
What?
And like always, I have been Jacob, and I've been joined by my two co-hosts. The one that's yawning is Jordan.
Yes.
And the one that is silent is Terry.
I'm always silent.
Oh yeah. Yeah. If you guys want to find where you can follow us or email us, you can always check the description below. It always helps though if you can rate the episode, or if you can leave a comment and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And with further ado, we'll end the episode, and we'll see you all later. Remember, look behind you, well, because death is always coming. See you all later.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.